We're going to walk all the way to Scotland, right the way along one of England's most beautiful coastlines, where we'll find stunning beaches, castles galore, gorgeous villages, and so much more. These are the ruins of Starlight Castle. A rainbow! Maybe the bottom of the rainbow, that is the Scottish border. I'd like to get to Warkworth before sunset, but that's never going to happen. I just can't see more than 10 feet in front of me. I cannot believe I walked the whole way. But this is not the end. Good morning. It's day 2 of our epic walk to Scotland. Yesterday we set off from Tynemouth near Newcastle and walked 36 miles up the coast to finish here in the village of Warkworth, where I stayed overnight. And when we entered the village last night, I barreled past this, the amazing Warkworth Castle, originally built in the 12th or 13th century, and once upon a time the home of the Earls of Northumberland, the famous Percy family. One of the most important castles in the region, and this is an indication of what we've got to look forward to today. In a few moments I'm going to set off from Warkworth here, and I'm going to walk further north to the village of Bamburgh, where I'll be staying overnight. On the way I'm looking forward to some amazing scenery, and hopefully not walking in the dark. It's less distance, so we should get there before the sun sets. But on the way we're going to see at least 3 amazing castles like this. Warkworth, ruined for centuries now, but used for a long time to keep Scottish border reivers away. It was involved in the Wars of the Roses, the English Civil War, and now it's one of the most beautiful ruined castles, I think, in the country. But yeah, I think it's about time that we get started for day 2 on our way to Scotland.
Yes, this was the day I was really looking forward to. Setting off with a walk around the perimeter of Warkworth Castle, I ventured into the village's tranquil morning streets, passing by the storied local church, which can trace its history back at least 1300 years, and then out of Warkworth over the River Coquet, by way of the village's medieval fortified bridge, the last remaining bridge of its kind in all of England. Leaving Warkworth behind though, I began anticipating all that lay ahead, with highlights along the day's route including the quaint fishing village of Craster, the mighty ruins of Dunstanburgh Castle, plenty more vast sandy beaches, and at the very end of the day, Bamburgh Castle, one of England's largest inhabited castles that looms large over the tiny village where I'd be staying that evening. All that lay far ahead though, and as I picked up the coastal path along the dunes on the northern side of Warkworth, I began to recognise that the effects of yesterday's mammoth walk hadn't entirely worn off overnight.
I'm not overly happy to start with dunes, particularly after last night. We seem to be keeping off the sandiest bit, so that's okay. I'm nursing a couple of ailments, I must say. A couple of blisters on my feet, and my knees a little twanged, if that's the word. But maybe I can walk it off, or maybe it's just going to get worse. I don't know, it's not too bad.
These are fairly familiar problems for me on longer walks. Blisters on the heels of my feet in particular are something that I've struggled to iron out over the years. But in truth, things weren't feeling too bad to start the day here. And as I continued on my way further north, I took my mind off this small nuisance by turning my attention towards an intriguing landmark in the distance.
I have spotted a cross on top of a hill just up ahead. I'm sure it's still a fair way away, but let's go and take a look. So that is the cross atop Church Hill. I believe it's called St Cuthbert's Cross, and the story goes that this hill is where St Cuthbert, the famous St Cuthbert, became the Bishop of Lindisfarne. Now Lindisfarne is a very important place along this stretch of coastline. It's the holy island of Lindisfarne, about 30 miles north of here. That was one of the earliest places of Christianity in northern England. There's a huge monastery there, one of the most influential in history, and St Cuthbert was the bishop. Later on in history, it was people devoted to him who founded the city of Durham further south. And you'll see the name Cuthbert popping up all over this part of the country. But this is an important spot. This is where he gained the title that made him a legend.
These events unfolded long ago in history, around the time of the 7th century AD. Today though, as I admired St Cuthbert's Cross atop Church Hill, I also took note of the houses of the village of Alnmouth just behind, located mere yards away, but agonisingly separated from me by the wide open mouth of the River Aln.
It's just there, but as you can see, there's a river in the way, the River Aln, which goes out to sea. They say at low tide you can wade across, but it looks way too deep for me. So, although I just want to get there, literally there, I'm going to have to walk all the way around the river and find a bridge somewhere inland and then come back into the village. That's going to take ages.
It really was going to take ages. Climbing down from the top of Church Hill, I embarked on what felt like an infuriating 3-mile detour around the river mouth. A real blow to my motivation, just as I was getting going on this second day. It took just under an hour to make my way to the centre of Alnmouth, those ailing feet only seeming to worsen as I made my way towards the village. But I did eventually find myself on the northern side of the river.
It was tiring getting in here, and the worst thing is, if I turn around, I can see Church Hill right there. It's right there. I think it's taken us about an hour to get round, all the way around the river mouth to this point, but we have made it. Now we must continue on.
Passing by Alnmouth's famous 9-hole golf course, at the 4th oldest golf club in all of England, I left the village that I'd spent so long trying to get into. I'd only been walking for about 2 hours at this point, and as the coastal path led out onto the wide open sands of Alnmouth Beach, I noted that there were now roughly 20 miles to go until today's endpoint of Bamborough. As tiring as it had been getting into Alnmouth, I was able to make good ground along the beach, enjoying its vastness as the morning clouds began to give way to blue skies. Blue skies which brightened my mood as my attention turned towards the next village ahead.
Ooh, we got another village up ahead. I don't know what it's called, but I wasn't expecting one this soon, so that's always a nice surprise. Maybe they've got a bench I can sit down on. I'm really quite tired.
The village in question was Boomer, a tiny seaside hamlet once upon a time renowned as a haven for smugglers, but on this day, home to a number of fellow visitors enjoying the scenery. With the local pub not yet open for business though, I didn't find anywhere to rest. And so, shortly after entering it, I left Boomer, struggling to shake off this early morning fatigue.
There was a bench, but there were 2 people sitting on it, very rightly enjoying the view. I thought it might be weird if I asked them to budge up. So don't worry, we'll just keep pressing on. I'll sit down on a grass bank or something. I've decided to sit down on one of these rocks, very helpfully placed. I'm very fatigued, I think that's the word. got about 17 miles to Bamborough. So it's far less than we had to do yesterday, but the state my feet are in at the moment.
Just over 10 miles into day 2, and having covered nearly 50 miles since Tynemouth yesterday morning, I'd hit a wall. Feet aching, I sat beside the path, recognising the fact that there were almost 17 miles still to go today until Bamborough. And, to be honest, that distance just seemed impossible the way I was feeling. So, considering the potential agony of walking all the way to Bamborough in my current state, I decided to set myself a more manageable goal. The pretty fishing village of Craster lay just 3 miles away, where there were plenty of benches, pubs, and even a bus that could take me to the end should I decide to give up halfway through the day. An undeniably enticing prospect. With this goal in mind then, I rose to my feet, and with some motivational sounds playing in my ears,
breaking up is never easy, but I have to go. Knowing me, knowing you, it's the best I can do.
I began making my way through the pain as I inched further up the coastal path towards Craster. And soon enough, I was rewarded with arguably the most stunning stretch of scenery of the entire trip.
It's just amazing. There's nobody about. Trickling water, I love that sound. What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful part of the world.
I could have enjoyed the view at the mouth of this stream all day, but I kept moving, still tired, but now genuinely buoyed by my majestic surroundings. The coastline growing ever more beautiful as I wound my way along a quaint stretch on top of the cliffs, passing by the small village of Howick and then towards Craster, where I was still considering calling it a day, and perhaps would have done, if not for a landmark that I spotted in the very far distance.
Now Craster is just the place I want to get to, and have a sit down there, certainly. But beyond Craster, there is a castle called Dunstanburgh Castle, an amazing ruined structure that sits on the cliffs. And I've just spotted it for the first time in the far distance. You won't be able to see it on the camera, but it's there. Now, I said today would be all about castles and sightseeing, and the scenery is amazing. Looking at my pace so far though, I don't think I'm going to reach Bamborough and Bamborough Castle by 3, which is last entry. So that's okay. I'm keen to visit Dunstanburgh Castle, never been there before. Bamborough Castle, we'll be able to see it anyway, as long as we get there before sunset, which hopefully we will do.
With the spectacular ruins of Dunstanburgh Castle located just a couple of miles away now, I could see a way beyond Craster. A village which at one point had seemed like the place where I'd be reaching an inevitable early end to the day's walk. Still, my fatigue hadn't entirely vanished, and so on entering the village, which is famed as the home of the Craster kipper, the world's gold standard for the traditional dish, I did make sure to stop and rest my feet beside the beautiful harbour.
I've been sitting here for a couple of minutes and I don't feel like moving, let me tell you. I've actually just seen the bus go past. So we can't get the bus. My feet hurt a lot. Why am I doing this to myself? We've still got about 13, 14 miles to go to get to Bamborough. It is 20 to 1.
Once again, I could have stayed here all day. But after about 20 minutes of respite on the harbourside bench, I rose to my feet and left Craster, drawn further north by the mystical silhouette of Dunstanburgh.
There it is. Ha! It's magnificent. Oh, the story of Dunstanburgh. It's about 700 years old, the castle. Early 14th century it was built. Even though it's in the sort of the middle of nowhere, over time it was built up to protect, once again, against Scottish raids coming from over the border. Obviously over time, particularly after Scotland and England joined to form one country, that threat sort of abated. So the castle was eventually left to ruin. And that's what we've got here in front of us. I asked myself back in Craster, why on earth am I doing this to myself? I'm still really tired. But this is why, things like this. You can only get here by walking. And it is incredible. Let's see if we can go inside.
Exploring the ruined interior of what was once one of Northumberland's mightiest castles, no small feat on this famous stretch of coastline, I was delighted not just by the history on display, but also the views. The castle situated on a prominent headland that affords vast panoramas over the sea and the surrounding landscape. Perfect then for spotting enemy forces approaching from miles away, and today, ideal for me to look ahead at the route that I still had left to walk.
You can see all the way down the coast here, northwards. That's the way we're going. I thought I might be able to see Bamburgh Castle in the distance, but it seems not. It's too far away, which is not good. Oh dear.
Still slightly daunted by what lay ahead for the rest of the day, my motivation had been given a real boost by this visit to Dunstanburgh Castle, where I spent a brief but thoroughly enjoyable half hour inspecting the ruins of another famous Northumberland fortress. Eventually though, the time came to leave, and as I made my way out of the castle grounds, I returned to the coastal path, walking north away from Dunstanburgh with around 12 miles still to go until Bamburgh. And having spent an extra half hour exploring the castle, I now realised that things were going to be a little nip and tuck when it came to reaching today's end goal before darkness would fall again. But with the motivational boost of a successful bucket list visit to Dunstanburgh Castle, I began making good progress, venturing along the wide open sands of another gorgeous beach, and then deciding to shave off a little bit of distance from the coastal path into some slightly different surroundings, as I headed inland through a pair of delightful villages.
Okay, low Newton. The coastal path seems to head off to the right towards the headland, but I think I've got a shortcut. I'm going to head inland towards the next village of High Newton. That might shave a mile or so off. I am in a fair amount of physical agony at this point, but I love this. Blue skies, Northumberland scenery. I think we've got just under 10 miles to go now. So slowly we're getting there.
Indeed, slowly but surely I was making my way towards the finish line. Leaving High Newton, I returned to a grassy coastal path that led me past the popular coastal retreat at Beadnell Bay. And with the sun falling ever lower in the sky, I took in yet more of the afternoon scenery as I approached the village of Sea Houses. This was the penultimate settlement that I'd passed through on the day's walk, just 3 miles shy of Bamborough, but where I had to rest and refuel once again.
I've been here in the summer before, and all of these benches were full. So it's quite a change. It's such a lovely spot, this. Fun fact for you while we're sitting here. The harbour here is called Northumberland Harbour. That's because originally the harbour was designed to serve an inland village called Sunderland, North Sunderland. And then this area, when they built houses by the sea, they called it Sea Houses. That makes sense.
By now it was nearing 4:30, and although sunset was fast approaching, I took every moment to enjoy the view of the harbour's tranquil waters and to reflect on the day that had passed by. Day 2 had been brutal. I clearly hadn't fully recovered from day 1, and I'd only grown more exhausted as I made my way further north. In fact, I really don't think I would have stood a chance at pushing myself all the way if it weren't for the amazing setting that I found myself in. Setting out from Warkworth Castle in the morning, I'd been treated to some of Northumberland's very best history and scenery, enjoying everything from the humble hill where St Cuthbert became the Bishop of Lindisfarne to the immense ruins of Dunstanburgh Castle, alongside delightful views in picturesque fishing villages and along some of the most remote but stunning sections of the coastal path. It had been a tough day's walk, but I'd been thrilled at everything that Northumberland had thrown my way, and now there were just a few miles to go until the biggest reward of them all.
I'm getting cold sitting here. It's 3.5 miles to Bamborough. It's going to be dark in about an hour. So I think it's time. Oh. It's time we get going. Oh, that's not good. Oh, that really isn't good on my feet. That feels bad.
The problem hadn't just been fatigue, but the blisters that I'd mentioned at the start of the day hadn't gone away. Although I do wear special anti-blister plasters and socks, this amount of walking was clearly just a bit too much. And I realised that if anything was going to stop me getting to Bamborough tonight, let alone the Scottish border tomorrow, it was going to be this.
Okay, this is it. The final push. Just over 3 miles to Bamborough. I can see the castle so clearly right up ahead. In fact, even further in the distance I can see Lindisfarne Castle. Way, way ahead in the distance. We're meant to be going past that tomorrow, but the way my feet are feeling, I don't know if I'm going to be walking tomorrow. We might have to call it quits this evening. We'll see. But if we get to Bamborough in one piece, I'll take that. This was meant to be the easy day. This was meant to be the fun day, sunny, sightseeing, castles, everything, but oh, it's taken it out of me.
With the castle in sight, though, there was no way I was going to stop now. In fact, as I left the pavement and dropped down beneath the dunes onto the beach, for the first time today, each step seemed to get easier. Each step bringing me closer to Bamborough.
The waves are getting closer. It's just coming up to 5 o'clock now. So we've been on the go 9 hours since we left Warkworth. And I'm dead. But what a wonderful day out. Honestly, this feels like a triumphant ending walking along the beach towards Bamburgh. It's a shame I'm so exhausted because this is probably my favourite stretch of coastline in the world. I just love it here. So much history, so much scenery. But I'd like to lie down.
As I said, this felt triumphant. The crashing of the waves providing a dramatic soundtrack at the end of an epic day. And soon enough, with the light in the sky almost gone, I approached my final destination.
There it is, Bamburgh Castle. Oh, how glad am I to see that. Wow, it's a little darker than I would have liked to get here. I thought I was going to get here for 3. It's just gone 5. Oh, dearie me. Poor planning again. Anyway, that is the castle. I love this castle. I think it's worth giving you some facts when I can. So Bamburgh Castle, I think the history goes back well over 1,000 years. Most of the castle now is fairly modern, but it's inhabited. That's the interesting thing. It's not a ruined castle. It's not just for tourists. A family lives there. I believe they're called the Armstrong family. But most interestingly, it used to be the seat of power in an old Anglo-Saxon kingdom, the kingdom of Bernicia, well over 1,000 years ago. And Bernicia used to cover a huge area of land, way up towards Edinburgh, down towards, I think, Durham, or maybe further south even. But this was its capital, one of the most significant sites in all of Anglo-Saxon England.
Perhaps reciting my best memorised version of the castle's Wikipedia page was just what I needed to carry me through those final few yards. But it didn't matter. I'd made it to Bamburgh in one piece, and could now tick off a second successive day as a success.
I'll get to go inside one day. Not today, it wasn't to be. Bamburgh Castle, right. The hotel, Victoria Hotel, is just on the green, the village green, around the corner, so let's go there.
I may have missed out on the chance to visit Bamburgh Castle before closing time, still having never been inside one of my favourite castles in the country. But this was not the time to worry. This was the time to make the short walk across the village centre towards the hotel, a place where I could finally rest and hopefully recover in time for the final day's walk.
Well, this is nice. Ooh. Right. I'm a little dazed. Let me just sit down on the bed. So, we did it. What a day. I'm really tired, more tired than I've ever been walking. I've never done a multi-day hike like this before, so this progressive fatigue is quite something. But in hindsight, what a wonderful day. The weather was incredible, and so was the scenery. As I said, that's my favourite, probably my favourite stretch of coastline in the world. And what a joy to walk it all the way from Warkworth to Bamburgh in one go. Tomorrow, hopefully, we should be making our way to Scotland finally. I don't know how far we've covered it overall so far, but the thought of walking another 25 miles is horrific at the moment. So I don't know if I will actually do it. I might just get the bus. I've been saying that all the way along. I'll just get the bus. But we'll see. I'm going to have an amazing lie down at the moment. But yes. Will I finish the whole walk? I don't know at the moment, honestly. You'll have to watch this space. But in the meantime, if you're still with me after 2 days of walking, thank you so much. I've had a lovely time. I'm so tired. But what an amazing part of the world. Till tomorrow. Good morning. I can see Scotland!